That's going to be at 1 p.m. And so one of our staff will be loading the registration link in if you want more information or if you'd like to register. Also coming up on the 27th, Ready for EVs workshop webinar is going to take place from 11 a.m. to 1. And we'll also be loading that information in as well. I'm going to ask if everyone would mute their mics. That would be great. Antoine, if you don't mind, I already started, but can I introduce you back after I do the announcements, or did you want to do them?
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay. All right. Join us on June 27th for the 2024 Ron Flowers Annual Scholarship Golf Outing. And I see he is here. So that is going to take place on June 27th at 8:30. It is a fundraiser, and we will be, hi, it's good to see you. That's going to take place at Oak Creek Golf Club.
This meeting is being recorded.
That's going to take place from 8:30 until about 5 p.m. We always have a great time, so please join us for that. Antoine, would you like me to continue with the other announcements, or would you like me to continue?
No, go ahead. Okay. I'll give some remarks after you're finished.
Okay, all right. So we're also going to load in the MAEP program. We have some great information. We're always doing a whole host of things, so we would love for you to take a look at the information based on that program. Also, the Empower Pledge. We're going to load the link in for that for those of you that are committed to EV charging and supporting that. And you can make the pledge and we can support you with that as well. So we'll give you more information on that. We also are working on the GUMBO, G-U-M-B-O, Workforce Development Initiative. We have information on that. You can also look or go to or refer to our website, which is gwrccc.org. Also check out our EV resources that is also located on our website. We're still looking for volunteers to participate in our annual report process. So we do have information for that we'll be loading in. And for those that are interested in wondering if you're not interested in working specifically on a project, you can always help on the sponsorship side. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not say this, consider becoming a member of GWRCCC. All right. We're also going to load within the chat an opportunity for you to follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts as well. All right, Antoine, I'm going to hand it back to you. Thank you for joining us.
Well, let me just say good morning to some and good afternoon to others. I know that we have folks joining us from all over the country today. I want to thank Kimberly for her leadership, and I see a lot of good folks on the call today. Happy Women's History Month. It's great to see so many dynamic women that are joining us from all over the country, for both near and far. And there's some good gentlemen who support you and are lifting you up and encouraging you in an industry that quite frankly needs more diversity at all levels of leadership, both in the public and private sector and in the executive sector, and also on both the public, private, and nonprofit board leadership level. In our organization at Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition, our board chair, Jill Hamilton, couldn't be here today, but I want you to know that we try to lead by example. We're not perfect, but we try to lead by example. Our board chair is a woman-owned business leader, Jill Hamilton, who does a lot of great work. Our vice president and our secretary of our board are all women. Two of them, the top two, chair and vice chair are small business owners. And then our secretary is a government employee with DC Department of Transportation. So we're trying to do what we can do. There's a lot more that we can do to make sure that we close the leadership gap in organizations and corporations, but also that we do more to ensure that our mission of clean transportation and energy and reducing climate change and the impact of transportation and the built environment on public health, and that reduces the health impacts it has on women and the children that they bear and the families that the kids that they raise and the families that they're part of and the workplaces that they work in and that the boss is in as well. So what we do is important, and all of these dynamic individuals that you will hear from today are leading at a very important time in our country as we rapidly move towards alternative fuels, clean transportation, a better environment for all people. Their leadership is desperately needed as we make sure that we make strong and smart investments and that no one is truly left behind. So I want to just thank you, Kim, and all these dynamic individuals that we will hear from shortly. And our office is here to support your efforts. If there's anything that we need to do, if there's anything that we need to do differently, please let us know. If you are not a member, please become a member. If you've not paid your dues this year, double check, because you probably have not. Please do that as well. And again, happy Women's History Month. And to our speakers, thank you. I want you to know that every day you are making history and continue to work hard. I know it's not easy, but you can do it. You were built for it. And God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. As you know, Women's History Month takes place from March 1st through the 31st. I just wanted to share a little bit, of context about the month itself. So this month serves as a time to honor the achievements and contributions that women of all backgrounds have made throughout the history of the United States, both by remembering those who paved the way in the struggle for gender equality in the United States and by recognizing the history makers and barrier breakers of today. So I consider us all to be history makers. I'm going to start by just giving you a little information about each of our special guests today. And then we'll start asking questions. And as I've said in the past, please feel free to type your questions within the chat, and we will make sure we get to those and ask those questions as well. All right, so I'm going to start with Catherine J. Garcia. She is the director of the Clean Transportation for All campaign, working to reduce climate and air pollution from cars, trucks, and buses, and ensuring that our communities are walkable, bikeable, and transit accessible. And Catherine is also a resident in Washington, D.C. We also have Rachel Geilenfeld. Rachel is a policy advisory for Chevron Renewable Energy Group. It's an international producer of bio-based diesel, which is a lower carbon fuel solution that can help lower greenhouse gas emissions. In this role, she works with lawmakers, regulators, trade associations, and in the industry to develop public policy that enables the production and the use of renewable fuels. Rachel holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Iowa State University and a JD and MBA from University of Iowa. Welcome, Rachel. Marjorie Fields Harris. Marjorie Harris is the Assistant Director of External Affairs for the Office of State and Community Energy Programs, SCEP. In this role, she oversees communications, stakeholder engagement, and legislative affairs for SCEP, which works with state and local organizations to accelerate the deployment of clean energy technologies. She is a seasoned political and communication strategist, and entrepreneur whose experience has taken her from government to nonprofit leadership to media and creating award-winning broadcast productions. Marjorie is an accomplished writer and editor, published in print and online, including in USA Today, Jet Magazine, Medium, and Amsterdam News. In addition, she co-hosted a weekly radio talk show in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she served as political analyst and has appeared on MSNBC, Sirius XM, and Fox News programs. So welcome, Marjorie. Sujata, we're going to call her Suji Sullivan. Sujata Sullivan, Suji, leads the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure segment for ABB's electrification business. Suji Sullivan's passion for sustainability and green innovation led her to join ABB 2 years ago to lead their U.S. electric vehicle infrastructure segment. In this role, Suji and her team partner with industry leaders in the electrification of transportation to find scalable solutions to quickly and efficiently build power distribution infrastructure required for electrification. Suji is a mechanical engineer from the University of Texas and has extensive experience in electrical, industrial, and telecom sectors, working for 3M, Prysmian. I was saying this earlier and now I'm tumbling over it. Davlin Group. A hallmark of Sujata's career is her ability to recognize innovative product development opportunities and strategizing with technology leaders to explore mutually beneficial partnerships. Welcome, Suji. Oluseyi Olubenle. I'm saying it slow on purpose. All right, Miss Olubenle is a transit executive leader serving as DPW&T Deputy Director and responsible for the oversight of Prince George's County's transportation system. By joining DPW&T, Ms. Olubenle served as Director of the Office of Planning and Capital Programming at the Maryland Transit Administration. During her tenure, she was responsible for the oversight and project development, capital programming, and environmental planning division, as well as the $4 billion 6-year capital budget. Ms. Olubenle also served as transportation planning divisions served as transportation planning consultant at the State Highway Administration and MDOT's Secretary Office. She is an advocate for public transportation, equitable planning, and civic engagement. In 2019, Ms. Olubenle was awarded the Emerging Leader of the Year by COMTO National for demonstrating leadership, a strong commitment to the transportation field and community, and positively influencing younger professionals entering the industry. Welcome, Oluseyi. All right, Marcy Rudd. Marcy Rudd is currently a principal environmental transportation analyst at Argonne National Laboratory and continues to provide support to DOE's Clean Cities program and related international activities since 1995. She leads a team of the ANL, which is Argonne National Laboratory, technical experts in the areas of electric drive, natural gas, and propane vehicles, renewable natural gas, idle reduction technologies, and emissions and greenhouse gas modeling, providing research, analysis training, and communication products to the Clean Cities Network. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you. So honored to be able to we're going to just jump right in and just ask some questions. So my first question, if I can ask, I'm going to start with Catherine. if you could share with us, and we're going to have this the same question. I'd just like to hear it from everyone. Tell us about yourself and how you started in your field or your career.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, and thank you for everyone who is attending this amazing webinar. And thank you to GWRCCC for all the work you do. It's great to be here today. So I'm Catherine Garcia, and I'm the director of Sierra Club's Clean Transportation for All campaign. I do want to start just super high level in terms of Sierra Club's work. Sierra Club started out as a club to help get people outdoors and enjoying the outdoors, and started out in the 1890s. And then since then has really started working in advocacy to move the US off of oil and gas and to improve our initiatives with clean transportation and clean energy. And when I first was drawn to the Sierra Club, I really liked this idea of making sure we were enjoying the planet and also working in advocacy. And we work really in the local, state, and federal levels. So I have always been a lifelong environmentalist, and I was really raised by my mom to be not only really interested in clean transportation. I was going to high school on the bus and riding my bike with my family, which is a big part of the advocacy I actually do now today at Sierra Club, but also really focused on making sure that everyone has clean transportation choices, can choose how they want to get around in a way that's clean and safe, and helping to ensure that we have a livable planet. So I'll stop there and pass it back.
Thank you so much. Rachel, I'm going to ask if everyone, if you can mute your microphones, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon in Austin, Texas, where I'm sitting right now. So Suji, you'll have to give me all the barbecue recommendations. It sounds like you spent some time here in Austin. I typically office out of Ames, Iowa, and I think I saw Rich Iverson from Ames on this call as well. I live in Ames. It's kind of, Iowa is the center of the agriculture industry. And I guess to answer the specific question, how I got into this industry, it was really through agriculture. I've worked in agriculture for a big chunk of my career, about the last 10 years now. And, I think previously we thought of agriculture and energy as being, sort of on opposite sides of the argument. I've more specifically worked in renewable fuels for the last several years. And let me tell you, we've had a lot of meetings in renewable fuels where we're talking about policy, and the phrase big oil comes up all the time. Big oil, where, we are kind of at odds with some of our interests sometimes. Well, I was working for a company called Renewable Energy Group, REG. We were the largest producer of biodiesel in North America. And if you're not familiar with biodiesel, it's a fuel that's made from waste products, typically soybean oil, used cooking oil, and animal fats. And we blend that fuel with petroleum diesel typically. So this is used in the heavy duty vehicle space. I think one thing that's really exciting about biodiesel is that it has this broad application for heavy duty vehicles, trucking, snowplows, trains, ships, just a broad application, and can really help reduce the carbon intensity of the fuels in the heavy duty space. So that was the industry I was working in. And then just about 2 years ago, Chevron acquired our business. Chevron had made an announcement they were planning to invest $10 billion in renewables, and they spent about a third of that acquiring our business. And part of that was because their strategy is to think about a lower carbon future. Their mission is to produce ever cleaner energy. And so this is one of the ways they're doing that is by now owning this large renewable liquid fuels production business. So I think that, it's really an exciting time to be in agriculture. I think some of those interests maybe we traditionally had in the agriculture sector and the energy sector are really dovetailing more than they ever have before. And we are really partners in trying to make sure that Our fuel supply is sustainable, and that the heavy duty vehicles out there are, they have an option for reducing their carbon intensity. This is something that we have a mutual interest in. And so, of course, working together can only help us move towards our goals faster. So that's sort of how I got into this energy space. It was through that acquisition, kind of. So a little bit unusual, but I'm happy to be here. I love having these types of conversations with professional women. So really excited to be included today.
Thank you so much. Marjorie, can you share with us how you started in the industry?
Hi, Kimberly, and I would be happy to. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here, as Rachel mentioned, among all of these wonderful women in the energy space and transportation. I'm currently you mentioned the Office of State and Community Energy Programs. I just want to say we call it SCEP. So
Yeah,
make it
got
easy
it.
next time you see it's not SCEP, it's SCEP. So as you know, the government has like a million acronyms. So we're
Yes.
always trying to abbreviate ones and they come out sounding funny sometimes, but it's SCEP. So my background is that in communications, my journalism degree is from Howard University, and my law degree is from Catholic University. I'm a DC girl and just returned to the area a couple of years ago. And so with that background, I've been able to do everything from be the press secretary for the city of Newark, for the mayor. And but I've also led a national nonprofit in civil rights. So I've had an extensive background in both areas in social justice and for one, and then also with economic justice. I worked with FinTech most recently, and we focused on the more than 50 million people in this country who are unbanked or underbanked. So when I had this opportunity, I looked at, with social justice and economic justice, one of the one things that they have in common is the fact that they touch people's lives, but energy justice is one thing that touches everyone, energy and environmental justice. So when I looked at SCEP, and we've got this $16 billion program, 28 different programs that impact people across the country, especially ones that have been underserved, I hopped at the opportunity to come in and really serve. So for me, it's a matter of using my background and coming into an area in a space, because we know energy and environment are two things that are always going to be pervasive in everyone's lives. So using my background in social justice and economic justice to come into the field. And that's what I'm loving doing, being able to touch people in these different communities.
Thank you so much. And it's SCEP. I got you. All right. I'm going to ask Suji. Can you share with us?
Thank you, Kimberly. I really am humbled to be a part of this. Thank you so much to invite me to be among such amazing women. I really appreciate it. I got into this, I would say, 2 years ago. I started at ABB, but prior to that, I had been working for large companies like 3M and Prysmian as an engineer and in the sales piece in telecom and the electrical sectors. And from those, I've learned a lot about, solar and renewable energies, and I've been able to work in those areas. But what really got me thinking about this piece in a bigger way was joining a private equity company as a VP of sales, a Daveland Group. When I joined them, I worked with OEMs and ICE trucking companies like Daimler and Navistar, et cetera, that were trying to improve their emissions. And we made insulation materials to actually improve their carburetor, being able to have the the goal was to make better and better insulation to make better emissions in the end. And honestly, to me, it felt like we're putting a Band-Aid on the problem a little bit. So I started to really look at how can we maybe add more technology-driven engineering companies to our portfolio because private equity always buys different companies. Didn't seem like it married well with the board as I would have liked. So then I started looking elsewhere and I got into ABB and I had the opportunity to work in EV. And this wasn't something that I thought I would do. I just had this passion for sustainability. I have 2 grown children and that already are educated and working. And so now I can actually work in something that's emerging and take that risk and kind of like see what I can do with it. And so I had that opportunity. And I say it like this because I mean, it is a challenge to be a mom and to raise children and to be able to do something where you can really be able to do it in a big way. Because in this challenge, I've had to travel a lot and kind of create this business and learn from others. And I find it really interesting because what I've learned from this is that Justice 40 and understanding where transportation, I mean, especially heavy duty trucking, ICE vehicles, as Rachel was talking about, they have an immense propensity of waste for diesel fuels because they sit around from drayage, the ports, and they don't go very far, and they spew out a lot of, carbon emissions into the air, and especially in areas that are not I'd say they're disadvantaged community areas. And because of that, there's poorer health. I mean, there is data showing that the lifespan of people who live in those areas is diminished by 10 years. So there's so much data showing that we need to do something. But to drive people's thought to go in this direction, you have to go to you go by data. You have to go by data. You can't just go by heart. So a big piece that I've noticed is it's also wastage of fuel, like diesel fuel. They're sitting and spewing out and wasting that fuel. So if you look at data from Clean Technica, already we have a lot of data showing that these heavy duty trucks actually, if they are electrified, the total cost of transportation is lower if you with electric vehicles than using diesel. And the big reason also is when they're sitting in traffic, the regenerative process of the braking can actually add to the electrical positive electricity instead of going with diesel. So there's a whole lot of things that made me excited about this in terms of the technical piece, but also the education piece and being able to learn from others. And I'm excited. I'm only in this space with ABB for 2 years, but I feel like I've learned a lot. There's so much more to do, and it's excited to be a part of this with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Suji. Marcy, would you share with us how you got into the industry?
Sure. Thanks to Antoine and Kim for organizing this event. I guess I'm the elder person on this panel. I started when I was 12, but no. But anyway, I've had 30 years of experience working in clean transportation. I went to grad school. I always wanted to be in public service, so I chose a degree in public administration. And my first job, it was in the late 80s and the economy wasn't all that great, but I got a job with the Ohio Energy Office. I never thought I would go into energy policy. I thought it would be, healthcare or social services. But I got this great job at the Ohio Energy Office, and about 6 years later, the Clinton administration started, and I really wanted to move to DC. I've always had Potomac fever to some degree. But so that job, of course, led to my background helped me, interview for the Department of Energy positions, and the job I got was helping to build the Clean Cities program and Clean Cities Network. So that has been my history. I've held different roles for that program, both at the Department of Energy and now at Argonne, which I've Argonne now. I've actually worked there longer than the Department of Energy, but just sort of ironic, my first position at DOE, one of my first duties was to start a community EV readiness program. And we were helping cities plan for the EV1, which was the GM vehicle with the lead acid battery technology. And so it's just, interesting how, if you're patient, things do come around. I mean, this is our time. I mean, it's just, I've seen it all. I've seen, ebb and flow of all the alternative fuels, the good times and the bad times, lean budgets, great budgets like the ARA money. I mean, that was $300 million. And look at what we have today for investment in clean transportation. So anyway, that's a little bit about my background.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so my next question, and keep in mind for those that are a part of this Zoom as well, you are free to ask questions. I just ask that you would type it within the chat, all right? All right, so my next question, I'm going to start with Suji. And I'm going to ask, why do you feel you are the woman for the job?
Thank you, Kimberly. Why I'm the woman for this job. I think, honestly, it is the ability to think outside of the box and kind of be able to be collaborative internally within the company that I'm in, because there's a lot of people I have to convince internally, as well as externally. You're always looking at finding ways, I'd say, kind of educating people about what this is, and really being data driven in that education piece is important. I feel like my background lends itself to that very easily, but being collaborative and working across divisions and convincing folks of what's needed to move to the next realization is important.
Oh,
But yeah,
so here's,
this is the other.
yep.
So I also feel like a part of this is driving thought, and like I said, internally and externally. If we can do this in a way that gets people to understand why we should move this way and to improve our energy security, we're making a difference across. This is not a political thing. This is actually something that's needed for the future. And politicizing is something that I'm seeing happen a lot with the media and what's happening today. We need to provide facts to our neighbors, our community, and internally to our companies that we work with, and externally as we speak to people across. So that's why I think this job is great for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Olusei, I missed you the first question, so I'm going to do both. So I want you to share how you got into the industry, and then also let us know why you feel you're the woman for the job.
Sure. So I'll go really quickly. Just wanted to start by saying thank you, Director Thompson, for including me in this discussion. I mean, when I talk about my journey, it's really clear that there's no one way to the industry. I started in architecture and urban planning, had always been passionate about public service. I actually started in Teach for America, which is a program that aims to close the achievement gap in underserved communities. So I stayed there for 2 years and then stayed an additional year. And I said to myself, this is not what I want to do anymore. So I went back to school. And ever since, I landed my first job in transportation. And I think transportation, at least for me, being born in DC, raised in Prince George's County, Nigerian American, I'm one of 5 girls in my family. We were just comfortable with riding the bus. So we relied on transportation, and it really provided the leadership opportunities that we have today. So after that, I landed my first job in transportation. And I think we all know transportation is at the intersection of everything from being the largest contributor to greenhouse gases. So by default, I was automatically put into the renewable alternative fuels industry. So I started in the private sector, for a couple years and then went into several departments in the public sector. So 2019 comes and I'm at the Maryland Transit Administration, and we're trying to get acclimated to what is even this technology? What is electric? What is an electric bus? And I think there were some on the like West Coast that were well in advance and had, been able to progress quite ahead of all of us or not all of us, at least on the Maryland side, in terms of, transitioning our fleet. And so we were completing our regional transit plan. And so I'm sitting here with assets that are about $12.5 billion in assets trying to figure out how to transition. And then COVID happened. And I know all of us have the COVID story of when the pandemic hits. And so we were really struggling with and grappling with how do we include equity, right, in the agency's response, recover, and then really prioritize those underserved communities. So now I'm at Prince George's County. For those of you who don't know, Prince George's County is the second largest county in Maryland, home to about 1 million people, full of diverse immigrant communities, rich in culture. So a lot of issues with socioeconomic status and also the diversity and cultures, and really trying to advance and grow and be nimble in our expansion, doing it equitably and responsibly. So that's really fast. And then why do I feel I'm the woman for the job? Well, it's taken me some time to actually answer, think about that question, because I have taken the time to really understand my strengths. And I think women should do that more, right? Understanding our strengths, understanding our weaknesses. I've taken the time to look at, I took the Myers-Briggs test a while ago. There are a bunch of other tests out there that really get you to understand what your strengths are. For me, I love to solve complex problems, bringing new ideas, being a visionary, being strategic, understanding how to build the team and filling the gaps of my weaknesses. I don't know how many of you have heard this, but there are statistics out there that say typically, not all, but typically men go for the job if they qualify for 50% of the qualifications, and women reject applying for the job if they don't have 20% of the qualifications of the job. So I think there's some growing and learning that we have to do as women leaders to support people who are entry level or interested as women in the industry. And so I tend to lean on my strengths in the effort to, support women and close the leadership gap.
Thank you so much for that. All right, Marjorie, why are you the woman for the job?
Well, one thing I will say is when I arrived at DOE, I've met some incredible people. I work with some people who are brilliant, and Marcy, this, people who are great in areas such as carbon capture and, hydro everything and solar. And I realized that was not the strength of my background, but I do understand 3 things. I understand systemic inequities, I understand advocacy, and I do understand working with disadvantaged communities. And so understanding that that was what I could bring to what they were trying to do relative to reaching out to communities, especially with the programs that we have now. That's why I realized I was the right person. So I don't necessarily have to have the science and technical background. While I do a lot of reading, trust me, in my spare time, I'm always catching up on things energy related, but I do understand how to translate that and to get that into communities that need it most. And especially when we're looking at these programs that we're trying to get out, we have these $8 billion in rebates that we're trying to get into communities, especially low and low to medium, low to middle income communities. When we look at that, that's really where my strength comes in, because I'm used to being in communities. I'm used to understanding their needs. And I think, as women, and, Olu, you said this, but sometimes we don't really think about our strengths. And I think in something like energy, women, we're the heads of households, we're the caregivers. We understand what goes into we understand what it's like to have a PEPCO bill every month. We understand how we have to balance things. And so I think we inherently have skills that sometimes we forget about. And so, so I think that's why I've been able to bring all of the breadth of my experiences, you know, in a variety of areas to an area like energy and make it work. And hopefully we'll see, you know, some good things come out of this.
I believe we will. All right, I'm going to ask Rachel, can you share with us why you believe you're the woman for the job?
Sure. Well, earlier I mentioned a little bit about the intersection of agriculture and energy. And then, of course, there's the environmental perspective to consider. So for my role, I'm almost exclusively speaking with government officials or elected representatives at the state level. And I think where I see a lot of success is really thinking about, okay, what message is persuasive to a particular legislator or audience based on their priorities. So if it's a legislator who represents a rural part of the state, you know, we've had other organizations say that biofuels production adds about 13% of value to a bushel of crops, and 13% for a farmer, I mean, that's pretty significant. And just framing it in a way that makes it valuable for them, it's persuasive to them. If somebody lives in a very urban district where they have constituents who live in lower income housing areas that are close to a major thoroughfare where there are a lot of diesel fumes, we can talk about how using biodiesel, there's a direct correlation to better health outcomes for lower income populations. I mean, what is the message that's going to resonate with a particular audience? I think that's something I always try to be very attuned to. And I will say, I'm kind of known for, amongst my colleagues, I have this little score sheet of all the bills that we've had introduced in my states, and just always recording like the vote counts. And I will say that almost all the bills I've worked on in the last 2 years have been overwhelmingly bipartisan. I think Suji mentioned, you know, things are getting so politicized. And I really am very proud of the fact that finding bipartisan consensus on the use of biofuels is something we've seen in almost every state. And it's just practically impossible, it seems like, to find bipartisan consensus on anything these days. So that's been really exciting and rewarding. One other thing I really try always to bring to the table is thinking about, okay, we have this value chain in biofuels. We have the feedstock producers, we have the end users, and everyone in between. And how do we kind of think creatively about the coalition that's going to support this legislation? So can we get like a sausage rendering plant in Wisconsin and the Port of Milwaukee and the Farm Bureau and the fuel retailers all to come together to support a common piece of legislation? Because guess what? We all have an interest. We have a positive interest in this legislation moving forward. So how do we work together? And just thinking kind of creatively about it in that way. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, you know, this is a very relationship driven type of work. And I do have a side hustle where I teach dining etiquette classes and networking. And so I think, you know, that relationship building part of it does really appeal to me. I like to do it. I like to practice what I preach. And so that's kind of a fun part of it as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Catherine, can you address that question for us?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So not only am I a clean transportation advocate, but I really see it as more broadly climate, clean energy, and clean transportation advocate. And this work is really personal to me. Back in 2012, I actually used to live in New York City. I lived in New York for 8 years. And during that time, I experienced Hurricane Sandy. And that was one of these defining moments that really helped shape where my career went. I was at that time about to go into grad school, and I really was affected by Hurricane Sandy and started to really shift my grad school career in terms of working and studying more on environmental issues. And then in 2019 and 2020, I was living in California, Northern California, and was severely affected by the air pollution from wildfires. So unfortunately, nowadays, it's actually much more common to say that you experienced a climate disaster. As we all know from last summer, it seemed like wherever you live in the country, you were talking about how pollution from the wildfires were affecting your day or affecting your family. But in the last decade, this was more of where you lived type of experience. So where I am right now at Sierra Club, I'm using excuse me, I'm using experiences from previous jobs as it relates to nonprofit leadership and communications. My undergrad was, I got a BA in communications. And so I really see the position I have right now as a culmination of a variety of different roles that I've had over the course of my career. The mission of our campaign right now is to achieve ambitious and equitable policies and programs that really move the needle on transportation decarbonization. And I wake up every day just determined to do as much as I can to reduce emissions in the transportation sector and to make sure that we have a livable planet.
Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, Marcy, you're going to finish this out, and then I'm going to go into the chat. There are a couple questions there.
I mean, I appreciate all the points that were made and concur. But I guess, you know, in my case, Clean Cities is all about building partnerships and partners. And, you know, I think women have a really good skill at you know, bringing people together and, you know, just trying to find the right group or individuals that can help move the needle and you know, continue forward on a path of decarbonization or reducing our exports of oil back in the day when Clean Cities was formed. And I think, you know, now it's been a great transition to have an equity focused administration and emphasis on all the programs. And so Clean Cities now is working with our sister lab and DOE to bring community engagement liaisons to the coalition and the work to really help engage the communities on the programs that they would like to see. So anyway, I think that's one of the skill sets that I bring and many other women.
All right, thank you so much. So I have a question in the chat from Salima. Her question is, how do you see the role of women's leadership in the energy transition and why? If anyone would like to answer that question or tackle that, feel free to jump in.
I think I can take a stab at that.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, I think it's important. I think women, you know, and you're beginning to see more and more people at DOE. If you walk through, you see, you know, there are a lot of women leaders leading different divisions. And I think it's because we have those touch points within different communities and we have that understanding of the things that will have to go into clean energy transitions. I accompanied the head of the Office of Energy Justice and Equity, Shalonda Baker. And she's taken a few energy justice tours throughout the country. And we visited Cancer Alley areas. So we were in Texas and Louisiana and certain communities that have been burdened by energy, whether they're close to oil fields and it's impacted their health or, you know, just a variety of things. But in every community, it was the women that came out. You know, we were in a small community and it was just women who were not English speakers, but they were there, you know, with their headphones because they wanted to hear about what the government can do to help them. And so I believe that is why women will be at the forefront of energy transition, because we're the ones who, you know, understand, like if the lights are not working or, you know, or if we're off the grid, you know, one of the things we don't think about when disaster hits in certain parts of the country and, you know, the electricity goes out, there are many communities that are off the grid, you know, we are still working on grid deployment. That's one of the initiatives of DOE right now. But again, these are families are burdened. So moms, you know, sisters, daughters, you know, we understand what that feels like. And that's why I believe that we are constantly at the forefront of this conversation.
Totally agree. Anyone else want to take a stab at that question?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in here.
Sure.
You know, I think one of the groups that I'm involved with, they're called Women of EVs, and they go by WEVs for short. I'll put the link in the chat. I think this is a really important space for women. And one thing that they do is they share job listings. You know, as I was listed earlier, some women don't even go out for the job if they don't think they're 100% qualified. And so I've found that in this space, they're really encouraging women to apply for jobs in the EV space. It brings together folks that are part of companies, nonprofits, academia. And so I think it's a really great supportive space and mentoring space. And I really like the feeling of that, and they're very inviting to women in this industry.
All right, before I go to the next question, does anyone else from our group like to address or answer that question?
I guess I'll just chime in with one quick anecdote. When we were just a standalone company, REG, we had a woman president named CJ, and her background was in chemical engineering. And she told a story that when she first started her career, they didn't have women's restrooms in the refineries, so she had to use the men's room. And I just was stunned by that. And anyway, she eventually became president of our company, and we are actually going through a leadership transition. So as of April 6th, our company will be led by 2 women. So our current director of operations is being elevated to president, and then another woman's being elevated to director of operations. So it is exciting to see women stepping into those leadership roles.
Wow. Great, great, great. Okay. All right. So there is another question. Patricia Epps, she said, I'm an electrician with an associate's degree in construction and EV certification. Do you have any suggestions for where I could fit in this vast new arena? Suji, I was going to ask you to address that.
It is exciting to hear about a woman electrician, first of all, because that's so rare. And also that you're already certified in EV. I wonder if that is an evitp.org, because I think that's an excellent organization. So there is such a need for people like you. It's amazing. There's such a need, and for people who have the skills and who are electrical, because what we're seeing is this is an electrical problem. A lot of people in the EV world, they think about the EV vehicle and then they think about the charger, because those are the shiny objects. They forget about, oh, wait, how do you power that thing? You know, there was a huge need for EVs, and there was a huge lead time on the electric vehicle, huge lead times on the chargers. Now these are much more readily available, but the actual electrification, all that equipment from the grid, there's a huge lead time still, and that's a situation that we need to resolve with innovation and leadership, and people like Patricia. We need electricians in the field. This is an excellent opportunity for you. There's several companies out there, electrical companies, that are in the EV field already. Please reach out to me by LinkedIn. I'll help you get into some of these. I'm excited that you are looking for this opportunity. And I'm just going to say one little crazy thing. I've been in the electrical industry for many years. I took my daughter to an electrical industry conference once, and what they asked all of us to do in the conference, you know, during dinner, was everyone who was under the age of 30 to stand up. And my daughter, of course, was one of them. She was upset that I made her do this because she was a teenager. And then the other question was, everyone who is not a male, a white male, stand up. There's hardly anyone. My daughter was the only one standing up. So this is an industry that needs people, especially women, to join. Very excited to see this. Thanks.
Great. All right. And she says, thank you so much. She'll reach out, and it is an EVIT or EVIT certification. Oluseyi, did you want to address that question?
Yeah, just real quick. I wanted to put my shameless plug in. Look for me on LinkedIn too. I mean, the county is looking into expanding our microgrid system. So we're doing a phase 1 in the design phase that looks at, solar panels, natural gas generators, and how to store our batteries as well, and how to charge them. And I think Sunji is spot on. That a lot of people think about the chargers, they think about the vehicles, but they don't think about the facility components. And so everyone who is involved in this industry has to think about ways to generate energy, store energy. We're thinking about how do we do that for our fleet? How do we do that for our en route chargers? Partnerships. Think also just not as the electrician, but also the partnerships with the utility companies. We have to have those discussions too, right? So there's a lot that you can do with your degree and build upon that. And so we need people like you. Shameless plug again. But I do think it's something that is going to continue to grow as we also expand in the county as well.
Thank you. Anyone else from our group would like to address it? Go ahead, Marcy.
I'll just add quickly, you also maybe would want to consider teaching in the future, maybe working with your community college to provide the training, or your union hall. So there's going to be lots of opportunities in that area too, as the market continues to grow.
Great tip. All right, I'm going to ask another question, and this is to all of our presenters or guest speakers. So when you got to where you are, let's say just where you are today, was there a special someone, a mentor, a shero that helped you get to where you are today? I'm going to start with Catherine.
So this is a really hard question, because I can tell you who really inspired me to apply for this role. And that was our previous director. She encouraged me to apply for the deputy position. I would have been working with her. Her name is Gina Copeland Newfield, and she was the previous director of the Clean Transportation for All campaign. And I moved over from a role that was at a state level position at the Sierra Club over to this national role. But the one person I really wanted to mention, and I've acknowledged that Gina has been a shero for my career. But today I really want to mention my mom, because my mom is actually a volunteer clean energy advocate for San Jose, California. And she was actually doing that even before I started working at the Sierra Club. She has inspired me to be a lifelong environmentalist, and she just made the right connections to help advocate for clean energy in San Jose, and is just an absolute hero of mine. And we're able to talk about our achievements in clean transportation and clean energy in a special way, in this mother-daughter bonding way. So I'm really excited about that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Rachel, you have a special person, a shero, a mentor that helped you get where you are today.
Yeah, I was reflecting on this, and I think I have to say the answer is no, unfortunately. So I live in the Midwest, and having spent nearly my entire career in agriculture and energy, it is not an industry that has a lot of women, particularly women leaders, and even more so women leaders of color. It's almost non-existent. Just recently, we were asked if we wanted to sign up for a corporate mentoring program. You could either sign up as a mentor or a mentee. So I filled it out, said I was looking for a mentor. And again, I got this message back that said, don't you want to be a mentor? And I'd signed up for a mentee, and I said, no, I'm looking for a mentor. And I think, I've been in, I don't know, my professional life for about, 15 years. And I think they were like, oh, maybe you should have a mentor by now. But I think that's still something I'm looking for. And I think it does illustrate a need for more women in leadership roles in this industry, and especially more women of color.
That's you. Marjorie.
I would have to say, I wouldn't say so much a shero or a mentor, but maybe an inspiration. And that would be our secretary, Secretary Granholm. I mean, she is fabulous. She's energetic, no pun intended, but she's she has all of this great energy and she's really committed. And I've been a fan of hers since she was a governor in Michigan, and just everything she's done politically and just her commitment to everything. And so when she went over to energy, I started reading about what she was doing. And so I would say she really was an inspiration. I even have a picture of when I was volunteering years ago. I'm like you, Marcy. I think I'm older than a lot of people on this call, but volunteering, and I was phone banking, and she came into the room where I was phone banking in Detroit, and we're sitting there calling people to try and get out the vote. And so it was a long time ago, but ever since then I've just kind of followed her, and so I think she's remarkable, and so it's an honor to serve with her.
Thank you. Oluseyi.
Yeah, I mean, I think similarly, well, I have what I call the Fabulous Five. So they are a group of advisors, some are male, some are female. And I've just always believed that it takes a village, to get you to where you need to go, to bounce ideas. And I don't even know if shero is the right term, or mentor. They're mentors, they're sponsors, they're industry partners, and all of these people who I've surrounded myself with, and women in particular, they provide a different perspective. Of the women of the Fabulous Five, they are Black women. And I think for me, it has just helped me to navigate those very difficult questions. Like, is this what he meant when he said that? Or am I overthinking it? Or am I going in the right direction? Just being able to bounce those ideas off. And I think for this industry in particular, it's ever changing. It can be hostile at times, unpredictable. Some of the things that we're even facing now with the vendor that we selected and them going bankrupt, like there are all of these difficult questions that we have to ask ourselves. And so I think looking for the mentor is good, but then sometimes you just need a sponsor to get you to the next step, or a conversation with the industry partner who is a female to just help you understand how to navigate those difficult questions.
Right. Thank you so much for that insight. Suji.
I think I have been in an industry that's been very male dominated as well for a long time. But what I've found are friends within the industry that all think similarly, and we learn from each other. We had started something called Women in Industry, a program during 2020, COVID, to really, because we weren't able to get together at conferences. And so we were able to do this, through Zoom and stay connected. So we would meet monthly and have some authentic speakers about how to be, whatever it is in the women led STEM type of thinking, in not necessarily in the EV, but in actual in the electrical industry. So that has been a super part of what I had joined to kind of help me stay connected to my friends, and also from that developed other friendships and folks that I could bounce ideas off of, that I felt safe with, right? That you can trust. And I try to give back the same way by being a mentor. I've been around forever, Marcy, myself too. I have a 25 and a 23-year-old, children. So I'm really, I feel like there's a lot that I learned from the younger generation as well. And I feel like that's a big piece of who I am today, is keep learning from the younger generations, and then also be able to provide some mentorship for the road that we have been paving for some time. So the other piece that I'm doing is I work with a group, an excellent leader who has started a nonprofit where we're going to go and encourage men of color at Towson University, and we'll be speaking to these folks about what careers they should go into and how to navigate that. So it's not just limited to women. There's a lot of need and a lot throughout to try to encourage folks to have the confidence and build that trust. So thank you.
Great work there. All right, Marcy. And after Marcy, we're going to go back to the chat. I see another question.
Yeah, so I have several sheroes in my life. My career at DOE, Shelley Lonnie, who was the first director of the Clean Cities program. We had some challenging times, and she was always very strong in terms of standing up to leadership. When she knew we were we were headed through or down the right course. So there was just some challenging budget times or just direction of the program. So but she was very strong and standing up to the folks that thought otherwise, I guess. So and then my colleague at Argonne, Marianne Mintz, we have actually 5 women on our Clean Cities team at Argonne, scientists and engineers and urban planners. And Marianne she took me under her wing when I came to the lab, and which was, obviously very different culture than DOE, and, just encouraged us and me to help build this team of experts that has really grown over the last 14 or 15 years to serve the Clean Cities Network and consumers and all of our analysis and communication products and tools. So.
Great, wonderful. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to read a comment and question from Nadia. She says, and she's from Oxford Mills, Ontario. Wow. You have unique windows into the progress of clean energy. In Canada and the US, we have political and industry forces trying to slow or halt environmental policies toward decarbonization. Are you optimistic or pessimistic that North America as a whole will meet climate goals by 2030 with net zero carbon by 2050? I'm going to start in the other direction. Let's go back to Suji. Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, we are hearing a lot of this negativity, like I had mentioned before, but I really think data is paramount in kind of making folks see the positives and what we can do together. It's not just the funding from government, but also private sector. There is a whole lot of trillions of dollars in private sector funding towards decarbonization. So companies like Daimler, I don't know if you've heard of a company called Green Lane, has started. It's Daimler with BlackRock and NextEra Energy. Their whole focus is to create what do they call trucking stops across the country every 100 miles across North America, including Canada, every 100 miles. These are huge stops for electric charging. That's a big piece that just came out this year. There's a group of car manufacturers that have come together. It's called IONNA, and they are 7 manufacturers: GM, Mercedes, Honda, Hyundai. What am I missing here? A couple others that have come together to actually they are creating the network of charging stations. They want to make 30,000. This is their own money across the US and Canada. So I think that we are really working to move in this direction with private funding as well as public funding. So that engine, I mean, that boat has sailed, the ship has sailed, and we really need to get, jump on board and help move it along and kind of change this negative thinking with data. And I think the big piece of what we're going to need is innovation in the form of digitization and AI. We really need to find ways to make this less costly to get that to go in this direction and more efficient. And that's where we're still needing innovation. So thanks.
Thank you.
Can I chime in on that? Just
Sure, I was going to ask you anyway.
All right. Yeah, no, I mean, when she mentioned cost, it just pinged my brain. Because I do think we're dealing with the unpredictability of the market, right? So the vehicles are expensive. I mean, you're looking at for a bus, $1 million just for one bus, not to talk of like the equipment and the chargers. So risk management is critical. And then there's the need to really start thinking about this in a different way, to be innovative. Some of these things we just have to customize our specs, right? Like this is a for-profit country, capitalist country. And I think even in Canada, you see the same thing, but there is a need to customize to a certain extent where agencies, private sector can plan for a backup plan. I mean, some of the challenges that you see with like EV startups, where you have the electric bus makers are finding it challenging to even make money to be profitable. So you have these companies that are going bankrupt in their effort to want to support the transition. So I do think, earlier I had mentioned taking a test about how I am, my strengths, and I didn't even know that one of my strengths was being optimistic. So I always answer this question with, yes, we can get there. It just will take policy, public-private partnerships to really be thinking about the efficiency of the process. How do you deliver a project in a way that is innovative, efficient, takes out to some degree the middleman and really gets the work done in an innovative way? And I think it's possible for us to get there, but it takes multiple sectors and we have to work together. And I think women provide that perspective of working together that we can, really get there.
Thank you. Before I ask, I wanted to ask Catherine if she could weigh in on that question as well. But Suji, there was a question in the chat from Patricia, and she wanted to know the name of the collaborative or collaboration organizations that you mentioned.
Green Lane. It's an actual, they have a charter to spend this money. They 1/3 each in terms of how much they're spending in this effort. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Catherine, would you tackle that question for us?
Yeah, definitely. So just echoing some of the things that have already been said, we are seeing a lot of private investment. I do want to take a second to talk about the investments from the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. I think these have really been game changers, especially for groups like mine. We have been encouraging, transit agencies, school districts, ports, companies to take advantage of these incredible investments from the federal government. One of our main goals is to make sure that this funding is being used to benefit communities, really leveraging this funding to maximize benefits in communities that are most burdened by air pollution. And so what we're seeing now is with this investment, it's making it easier for the deployment of these electric vehicles, but then also we're seeing manufacturing spurring clean energy jobs, union jobs, on everything from vehicle manufacturing to battery manufacturing here in the US. And so not only are we setting up ambitious policies to help move the needle, but we're also seeing this equate to clean energy jobs and really making sure that these are good jobs. So I think that coupled with the policies that the Biden administration is adopting, and also policies that states are adopting is really helping to move us forward. But it's not going to be an easy road. I mean, from now to the 2030s, we have a lot of work to do, and it's really going to take a lot of coalition building. So just a quick shout out in terms of like the work that I do with advocates. This is bringing together groups that are focused on health, that are focused on environmental justice, that are focused on consumer groups. We work a lot with EV, like EV drivers and EV advocates, and then also even faith groups. And so it's really been an inspiring movement to be a part of, but I know we have a lot of work to do, but I am optimistic.
Would anyone else from the group like to?
Yeah, I would
Angela?
just like to just add because and I agree, I'm very optimistic, and many of the things that you just mentioned, Catherine, in terms of the programs, I think that we're going to begin to see, because of the investment that the Biden administration has made in energy. I think over the next several years, as we begin to see people talk about how their energy costs have been lowered because they were able to weatherize their homes, or the difference a heat pump has made versus some of the traditional methods that they used in the past. I think once we begin to see the impact in our pocketbooks, because we know that that's where everyone really, you know, we vote and we think with our pocketbooks. And so once we begin to see the impact of all of these things, these rebates that are coming out, I think that that is going to be what gets us to the changes that we need in 2030.
Great. Also, Marcy wrote or typed in a comment, optimistic too. Private sector investment, other state funding investments, independent of federal funding. Battery costs are coming down and will continue to, but takes many organizations, as you know.
I just want to mention, there's a lot of states that are, you know, passing legislation. New Mexico just passed their clean fuel standard. Illinois has huge incentives for investment in plants, building manufacturing plants in this space, as well as other, you know, tax credits for consumers. And so anyway, there's a lot of other investments that are out there that are going to help drive the market as well.
Rachel, would you like to weigh in on that question?
I was just about to bring up the New Mexico policy, Marcy, so I guess you stole my thunder on that one. This is an area that is so policy driven. So I think that constituent pressure and consumer pressure is really part of what can move this progress forward. I guess I did want to maybe mention, you know, I think that it is important to acknowledge that there are multiple technologies that can move us towards decarbonization. I was talking to like a city manager on the West Coast, and you know, he said we consider biodiesel an interim solution, and an interim solution isn't good enough for us. I mean, I think, you know, when we're thinking about the carbon accumulating in the atmosphere, a 20% reduction, a 30% reduction today is meaningful. And I do, you know, I think that we just have to be mindful of policies being balanced and really thinking about multiple paths to decarbonization. You know, I think just kind of the adage, don't put your eggs in one basket, just really thinking about the diversity of solutions that are available.
Thank you. Great. All right. I'm going to do one more question. Salima said, great discussion. Thanks to GWRCCC and all the female panelists today. Nadia said, thank you. Suji just put in a comment saying that Nissan just mentioned that they have a EV/ICE price parity plan by the end of the decade. So, all right. So my last question for today, unbelievable. The time has really, we have 10 minutes left before we conclude. I'd like for you all to celebrate yourselves. And so I'm going to ask you to share with us what your greatest accomplishment was or is. I'm going to start with Suji.
I think my greatest accomplishment is yet to be done, yet to be had, I will say. There is a lot of work to be done in this space. I feel like I am just starting, and I feel like there's a lot for me to do, and I love the challenge, but I feel like getting to those different innovations to get to the costs where we can realize this dream to improve our environment and get to a clean transportation economy in the US is going to require a lot of work. So I feel like I'm in the right place. One of the big challenges I did within my company, and I work for ABB, that is a company that manufactures electrical power distribution equipment and low voltage and medium voltage. So we work with the utilities a lot. We work across the whole power grid. We're also into robotics. We're into a lot of different things, but this is the biggest piece of what we do. One of the things I was able to do is come up with a standardized kind of solution for this EV space on the low voltage power distribution. The reason is we need to kind of think outside of the box, like I was saying, and I feel like that's one of the biggest things. I'm able to kind of figure out what type of products we need to have in the space by talking to different people and different stakeholders, and then looking at what the company has the ability to do and try to push the boundaries to get to a solution. So this was a big, I think, a win for us because we were able to find ways to reduce that time lag that it takes to make this equipment. And so I'm very excited about what we can do moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So you did have an accomplishment. It doesn't have to be one. I mean, I believe all of us are great in our own areas. So just celebrate you. All right. You rock. All right. Marcy.
Okay. Just briefly, being part of the Clean Cities program and being able to keep it moving when times were lean, budgets were lean, a lot of support from management. We created a Clean Cities nonprofit, Clean Cities Inc., and that enabled coalitions to become nonprofits themselves, which gives them much more flexibility and opportunity to grow and to help also educate elected officials through that capacity. And then starting Clean Cities International, which helped back then the natural gas and propane industry with deploying technology in emerging economies with safety and training for mechanics and technicians. And but it helped to keep those industries, gave them an opportunity to continue in that direction when things weren't quite as prosperous here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Oluseyi.
Trying to like unmute here. Yeah, I'm really excited about one of my accomplishments. All right, so launching initiatives that matter. In Prince George's County, we just recently launched the Prince George's County Transit Transformation. Try to say that 4 times. And I think just in general, and I think Suji said it earlier, that the best is yet to come, right? So I do look forward to continuing to deliver services, projects that matter, particularly in areas that are often forgotten. I mean, we're talking about changing the levels of pollution, reducing noise, right? For our children, for people who otherwise wouldn't have a voice, right? So really implementing projects that talk about inclusion in equity in transportation, really thinking critically about how we spend tax-paying dollars, right? So that's one of the challenges that I face, often competing priorities. So leveraging those funds, applying for grants. We were able to, win grants over the last 2 years in amounts that we've never received before. So just being purposeful about the work, reminding myself of where I sat and continue to sit in the transportation industry and getting to jobs that matter, right? Getting to grocery stores and community centers and always remembering my why. So I look forward to what's next.
Great. Wonderful. Marjorie.
I have a mantra that I live by, and that is to leave everything better than you found it. So wherever I've been in any job, on any situation, friendship, anything, I try to leave it better than I found it. So I guess I could look at like the small victories here and there, but I have to agree with Suji, like the best is yet to come. So we'll see what happens after I've been working with this. But along the way, I've celebrated the small victories and, like I said, leaving everything better than I found it.
Wonderful, great. All right, Rachel?
Yeah, I guess I'll mention a small victory. I think that men can tend to engage in behaviors that exclude women, right? And I don't think they're necessarily malicious, but when we have a conference and all the men decide to get together a day early to go golfing, they're probably talking about important topics, right? Or like I'm in DC a lot, and a lot of the men want to go to a cigar bar. And I think that some of those behaviors, again, not intentionally, but they do have the effect of excluding women. I mean, if I go to a cigar bar, I'm gonna have to get up an hour earlier the next day to wash my hair. And trust me, these men don't have an excess of hair to worry about. And so they don't think twice about going to a cigar bar, right? So I think my small victory is just trying to use my voice to call out some of those behaviors. I did mention it to a 58-year-old white male colleague once, some of these things are excluding me. And he said, "You're ruining all the fun." And I said, "It's not fun making 82 cents on the dollar." So I think, just trying to use your voice and also coach other women who are in my generation and younger generations, just to not accept that is the status quo.
Great. All right, Catherine?
Thanks. Yeah. I want to, I love everything that's been said. These are so many great and important answers. I did come up with an accomplishment that I wanted to name. So really briefly, back in 2020, I had worked on a campaign in California to pass a policy that would move forward electric trucks. So this is called the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule. But I've now, with my role as a national advocate, I've been able to see 11 total states pass the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule, which will help reduce toxic emissions from the trucks and buses, particularly in trucks and buses that are in environmental justice communities. And this particular policy, since 11 states have adopted it, it covers about 25% of registrations in the country that are for medium and heavy duty vehicles. So I was a part of this amazing campaign in California with many, many advocates, and now just seeing it expand across the country has been very rewarding, and just so grateful for the advocates that I work with.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I am so grateful and inspired. For all of our speakers, I want everyone that's on the Zoom to give out a virtual round of applause to all of our speakers today. There is one last comment. It looks like it's directed to you, Oluseyi. It says, to reach the goal, it will take forward-looking individuals like yourself to provide opportunities for small business and rural communities to have the opportunities to participate. We need to implement greater advancement at the community level. For Ms. Olu Benlay, we will be reaching out to discuss how to expand ground level participation. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Antoine. I'm hoping he is still tuned in so that he can close us out. But I just want to say thank you to all of our special guests today for being a part of this great and inspiring conversation.
All right, I want to say to all of our speakers, thank you. You all were very inspiring. I like, Rachel, some of those nice points that are always insightful as a progressive leader. I so noted some of the things you mentioned as well. I was just talking with our team about what they call microaggressions, right? And things that happen in the workplace that people don't realize, and other forms of what they call unconscious bias as well. So I want to just thank you all for being here. If you are not a member and you want to see more of this, become a member today. If you are a member but have not paid your dues, make sure before the day is over that you pay your dues. And if you're not a person that does dues, but you want to donate to our cause, you can do that as well. I did see someone say, Miss Epps in the chat, that you want to become a golfer at our golf tournament, the Ron Flowers Golf Tournament. We will have a golf clinic. So you can join me at the golf clinic and do some putting and everything before then. Without further ado, thank you all. God bless. And we'll see you all on either tomorrow or Wednesday for our next two events. God bless. And again, happy Women's History Month, because in our office, every day is Women's History Day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Take care. Have a great week.